a missile that can be launched from a train, or a hypersonic one that can evade defenses. These are some of the newest weapons in North Korea's arsenal, which is already stocked with nuclear bombs and intercontinental ballistic missiles that could reach anywhere on the U.S. mainland.
So what they're investing in is to make these missiles as creative and surprising as possible.
It's all part of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's promise to build an invincible military. And the growing number of weapons is drawing attention from the U.S. and its allies in the region.
It's all part of a strategy for North Korea to show that despite years of sanctions and the struggles of COVID, that at least in terms of military, it remains strong.
So here's a rundown of some of the latest technology in North Korea's arsenal and what message its expansion sends to the world. North Korean weapons tests have taken place under all three generations of the Kim family leadership. The country launched its first homegrown missile in 1984, but the frequency of the tests spiked under Kim Jong-un and included one of the largest ever launched by the country. Tests slowed during the pandemic, but in September of this year, North Korea unveiled a new weapon that would be the first in a quick succession of tests.
Most recently, we've seen things like long-range cruise missiles.
Melissa Hanham researches weapons of mass destruction at Stanford University's Center for International Security and Cooperation. She's been closely watching the activity in East Asia for 15 years.
They're almost like a small airplane that can turn corners, fly through valleys, and most importantly, fly beneath and around radar.
Hanham says this quality makes a long-range cruise missile different from a ballistic missile, which can often carry a heavier payload and is typically shot into space with a rocket, then falls in a faster but more predictable trajectory. The cruise missile, on the other hand, can evade detection and stealthily hit a target.
South Korea itself has been building up very powerful Hyunmoo cruise missiles, some of which they have touted historically could hit Kim Jong-un. So in a way, North Korea is probably trying to keep pace with the missiles coming out of South Korea.
About 2 weeks after the launch of the long-range cruise missile, North Korea said it tested another new weapon.
국방과학원이 새로 개발한 극초음속 미사일 화성 8용 시험 발사를 진행했습니다.
It goes much, much faster than a cruise missile. That's why they emphasize hypersonic.
Hypersonic missiles generally can fly a mile per second, traveling about 5 times the speed of sound.
It can maneuver and then dart down through the atmosphere again in such a way that it would be very hard for ballistic missile defenses to track and then intercept. And so it's a way of overwhelming and beating U.S. ballistic missile defenses.
Here, you can see the hypersonic missile on display while Kim Jong-un surveyed his expanding arsenal in October. South Korea's military said that the apparent hypersonic missile appears to be in an early stage of development. But Hanham says the regime will continue working on more nimble missiles that can carry nuclear warheads.
North Korea is thought to only have a few warheads, and that means that they need to find creative ways to deliver these warheads overseas. And Kim Jong-un has declared that they will have a multitude of ways of delivering these.
That also means having missile deployment systems, and the regime's scientists have also been working on new projects. In September, state media released footage of 2 short-range ballistic missiles being launched from a train.
The idea behind it isn't really that it's a more powerful missile or faster missile. The idea is that it's a sneaky missile.
And that's thanks to the country's extensive railway network, which stretches from the demilitarized zone that separates the two Koreas through the country's mountainous terrain and all the way to its border with China and Russia.
The reason they've chosen rail cars, it becomes nearly impossible for the U.S. and its allies to track which rail cars have missiles and which ones don't.
Another way to surprise rivals, go underwater. While submarine launches are not new, Pyongyang said its latest test in October showcased a missile with advanced features like gliding skip mobility.
A submarine gives them one more creative way of moving around and using up intelligence resources as the United States and its allies guess where these missiles are.
But it isn't known if North Korea fired the missile from an actual submarine or from a submerged barge, as Pyongyang is believed to have done in earlier tests.
There's a big difference between testing this type of technology and then have it be reliably operational or useful in a military context.
But North Korean analysts say the recent military muscle flexing still sends a strong message.
North Korea and Kim Jong-un, they're still walking this fine line. They're not doing something so extreme like a nuclear test or an ICBM launch that really would draw the wrath of the entire world. But it has the effect of just reminding the US and South Korea in particular that we're not going to stop until we get recognition in the international world.
The Biden administration has said it's willing to hold talks anytime with Pyongyang. But in a speech at the weapons exhibit, Kim said the US couldn't be trusted.
So if and when talks do reemerge with South Korea or the US, they can promise to stop doing these types of tests in return for some type of goodie, be it sanctions relief or humanitarian assistance or a peace declaration. But these weapons tests, beyond sharpening North Korea's ability to defend itself and perhaps intimidate US allies in the region, it also gives them a chip at the bargaining table.